Yeah, it looks like, yep, we're good. We're up on Facebook, we're on Zoom, and Don Royne's on, so we're on 143, so I think we're good to go.
Okay, can everyone hear me? Okay. As Vice Chairman, as there is no chairman, I'd like to call to order the Select Board meeting of June 30, 2020. There's a brief introduction. Tonight's meeting will be conducted on the Zoom platform and live streamed on Cohasset 143 TV and Cohasset's Facebook page. The public is also invited to participate on the Zoom platform, which can be accessed using the link provided at the top of the posted agenda for tonight's meeting. The Zoom application may be loaded onto a smartphone, laptop, table, or other computer. Members of the board and other scheduled participants will be able to participate when called on by the chair. Board members will be able to ask questions of any participant. All votes taken at this meeting will be by roll call with the full name and then the nature of the vote. Members of the public who wish to ask questions are asked to utilize the question and answer feature on Zoom. That's the bottom middle of the page, including typing their name and address for the public record. If there is no address and name, I cannot answer the question, but I would ask that they're clear about that. The chair will review the questions and direct them to the appropriate participants for a response. This meeting is also being recorded and will be available for later viewing on Cohasset 143. I'd ask for a call to order. All votes are roll call. Diane?
Diane Kennedy here.
Corey?
Corey Evans here.
Kerry?
Carrie Thompson here.
Jack? Unmute, Jack.
Jack Creighton here.
Paul Schubert here. We will open the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I believe Diane and Chief Quigley was here with a flag, but he's off. If rise and I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, for which it stands, one nation under God, to the republic, under God, indivisible, with one nation under God, indivisible. Diane, can you finish it?
With liberty and justice for all.
They're hassling me in the kitchen. It's annoying.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I was, I muted too, or I would have been helpful.
Sorry, I was getting harassed by the kitchen staff.
Kitchen staff.
Okay. Next up, public comments, and I'll go to the question and answer. I see no open questions. Next up is board reorganization. And I would ask for, as there is no chair, I will act as chair at this point. I will ask for nominations for chair for the select board of Cohasset.
A quick question before we get into the nominations. Can we go over both for myself as a new member and the public, just what the roles we're going to be voting on tonight are?
So it will be chairman, vice chairman, and clerk of the board.
And a brief overview of kind of what the slices are for those responsibilities.
Okay, so the chairman would be working closely with the board and the town manager and is responsible for setting the agenda. The vice chair, should there be illness, lack of a chair, if it is a virtual meeting, which is not of the Zoom platform, then the chair, if it is not physically present, would have to turn the running of the meeting over to the vice chair. The clerk generally will sign certain items that are required by law for the board, and also will review the minutes of the previous meetings.
Thank you.
Just to add to the clerk responsibilities is the entire board of selectmen vote on the minutes. So it really is incumbent upon everybody to read and review minutes before they vote on its approval. But usually it's gone through the clerk first for typographical errors and people's names and addresses, just to kind of make sure by form that it's okay. So I just want to point that out. So it's it's really all of our collective responsibilities to make sure the minutes are accurate.
Is that okay?
Yes, thanks for that.
Okay. So I would like to nominate Diane Kennedy for Chair of the Select Board of Cohasset. Are there any other nominations? I see none. I would ask for a vote. It will be a roll call vote. Corey?
Before I do the vote, could I hear from Selectwoman Kennedy about, why she wants to be the chair and kind of what makes her a good choice for this?
Thank you. I would like to, first of all, I appreciate the nomination. Paul, I would like, just because it's sort of unusual in this, what we usually do is the vice chair, and it's not guaranteed, but usually the vice chair takes on this responsibility. So I would appreciate Paul just sort of, if he's willing to express, why he nominated me, although I'm very happy to do it. And I've been chair, twice before, and I think I'm a collegial chair, and I really want to involve every member. I don't see the chairman's role as chairperson's role as anything more than being the conduit among the members to getting agenda items and making sure committees are represented on the agenda, et cetera. So I'm happy to do it this year. I think it's going to be a big and important year. And again, I'd like to hear a little bit from Paul if he's okay with that.
Yes. I mean, typically the vice chair advances to the chair the following year, which it would be my role this year to consider being chair. After the last 3.5, 4 months, knowing what was going on from a professional point of view in the hospital with the current COVID crisis, looking down the road in the fall, I suspect there will be a second wave. If it is anywhere near to the level of intensity and demands, I honestly do not believe I could be chair and effectively serve the town appropriately. And so I don't believe I should be chair, and I'd be willing to help in any way, but knowing what the demands were over the last 3 months, I could not functionally help the town run, and I don't think I could serve the town properly.
Paul, I want to echo everyone's thoughts here. I think that that we would have nominated you as chair tonight, and we appreciate your honesty and really understand that what you've been going through as a first responder and doctor is like nothing you've ever experienced before. So I think that I echo everyone in saying that we respect your decision on that, and thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to echo Corey's, Carrie's. We have Carrie and Corey now. I would like to echo those sentiments. I remember looking over at you, Paul, and you were just dog tired to the bone. No offense against dogs. I like dogs.
I do too.
But you've done a very good job, and I know this would have been a very important part of your political career, and stepping aside for Diane, I think is admirable, and I take my hat out to you. Thank you.
And Paul, yeah, thank you for explaining that, and everything that you do for the board, and then, as Jack said, stepping aside. The next 12 months are going to be pretty difficult. Your nomination of Diane, speak to that if you wouldn't mind, just a little bit.
So I've worked with her before. She's been chairman before. I think the biggest thing we need is a consensus, because of over the next, I think, honestly, 12 months, we're going to see some significant problems in the town from a financial point of view. I think there's going to be demands on if we have to close down again to some extent, or limit and help keep the schools open, how we're going to do that from the town point of view. is going to be very demanding. I think she has a consensus building ability, and I think she is up to the task.
I also think that Diane's institutional memory here will be valuable going into this year, especially because we have so many unknowns related to our budget, our town finances, what's going to happen health-wise with, you know, the state and the country. So I do think this is a time when her institutional memory will be helpful for the board.
Thank you all, and I'll just echo. Paul's been a fantastic partner with me in terms of serving on the board, and also before that on CEF. We've been together, and I have tremendous respect for him, and I am happy to, to take this active role, knowing that I am going to have to depend on every one of you and Paul to get through all the matters next year. And I, just in terms of my style, I have always kept a huge Google spreadsheet for agenda items. I will do that. I want all of you to be as engaged in everything that's going on in town. I feel very strongly about each member of the board having the same amount of information at the same time as everybody else. And, I look forward to working with all of you and moving us forward. And it's going to be challenging, but we have to be, we have to work together and make it work. So thanks for the nomination.
Any other comments? So I'd ask for a roll call vote. Corey?
Corey Evans, aye.
Kerry?
Carrie Thompson, aye.
Jack?
Jack Creighton. Oh. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Yeah, on the basis, I really appreciate the call to an open agenda and a call for everybody working together on the board. So my vote is aye.
Diane?
I'm going to recuse myself. Abstain,
Paul?
sorry, abstain.
Abstain, yeah. Paul Schubert, aye. So the vote carries 4-0-1 not voting. I hand it over to you, Diane.
Okay. Thank you. So I will call now for nominations for vice chair.
I nominate Kerry Thompson for vice chair.
Great. Are there any other nominations? Carrie, thank you. Are you up for the task? And
Yes, Paul, I appreciate the nomination. I am absolutely up for the task if that's what the board wants. Again, I think this is going to be a very challenging year. I think the fact that we're even starting our board reorganization on Zoom speaks to how challenging it's going to be, and I'm happy to step up in whatever way possible that we need as a town.
thank you. Any other comments? Okay. Then we'll go to a roll call vote, and I'm going to go in the order as I see you, but I'm going to try to mix it up a little bit. So Paul Schubert,
Paul Schubert, aye.
Jack,
Jack Creighton, aye.
Corey,
Corey Evans, aye.
Carrie.
Am I supposed to abstain or vote?
You don't need to abstain.
All right, Carrie Thompson, aye.
And Diane Kennedy, aye. Congratulations.
Yay.
Welcome. Okay,
Congrats,
so
Diane.
thank you. So we have an
Congratulations.
agenda. Yes, we have an agenda to get through. The first item on the agenda is,
Quick point of order, Diane.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, quick point of order. Are we supposed to nominate for clerk?
oh, yes, I'm sorry. See, I wasn't prepared. So the clerk position is, if anybody is interested in making a nomination for clerk.
I nominate Jack Creighton.
Jack, Jack, you need to unmute. Jack, sorry, we can't hear you.
here we go. It was on. Unfortunately, as people may know, I have a very demanding business, which typically at any given work week, it's 60 plus hours. So thank you, it was an honor, but I really need to decline, any further responsibilities. I think what I'm doing with just as a member of the Board of Selectmen is taken tremendous amounts of my time. And, I do need to attend to my business.
Thank you. Corey?
Yeah, if I may, Jack, I mean, it seems you've been paying attention quite a bit to things that are on the agenda, things that are coming up to the agenda. I personally would appreciate, your eye on these things. I think you've been paying attention to these things quite a bit. I do understand that there's a lot of time constraints, but it would be a great service. I'd appreciate it if it was something that you could take on, but I do understand as well, but I did want to give you my support there.
Well, Corey, thank you. I appreciate that. And I do a lot of things on some various boards and committees. I do spend a lot of time already. And without going into a lot of tiresome details, there are a lot of very significant issues going on right now. There's document requests outstanding. There's a tremendous amount of town business that I'm already deep into. There's a lot of simple things, however, when I'm asked by two people, I will agree, but I'm going to track you down to help me, Corey.
I'm happy to assist, of course.
Okay, thank you.
And it is important to note, ultimately the clerk, the one biggest responsibility other than running through the minutes, which we all have a responsibility to do, is reading into the records some of the bond anticipation notes that we had to do a few weeks ago. So that'll be next May and hopefully we'll free up. But again, we all need to be in this together. So if you're willing to accept the nomination, Jack, I'd love to call for a vote.
I'm going to accept, but you mean I have to read those bond notes?
Yes, you do.
There is reading involved, yes.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, we'll give you.
We're going to talk about this.
Carrie
Thank
can give you some elocution communication
We trust
lessons.
you, Jack. We trust you with those.
Oh, so foolish. Anyway, thank you very much. Yes, I will.
Unless there's any other comments, I'll move to a vote for Jack Creighton for clerk, and I'm going to start with Paul Schubert.
Paul Schubert, aye.
Corey?
Aye, thank you, Jack. Corey Evans, aye.
Carrie?
Carrie Thompson, aye. Thank you, Jack.
Jack?
Jack Creighton, aye. Thank you, Jack, I guess.
and Diane Kennedy, thank you. Okay, so we have filled the 3 positions on the board. Thank you all very much for your willingness to help. And we will now move on to an update on public emergency. I imagine we'll go straight to Chief Sylvia first. Are you orchestrating this?
Yes, there we are. Congratulations, Madam Chairwoman, Madam Vice Chairperson, and the new clerk. Congrats and thank you for taking on those responsibilities. So we're going to give you a quick update in regards to what's gone on since the last time we talked, last Tuesday, and where we stand. Obviously, Pam is with us, Mary Goodwin is with us tonight, Chief Quigley, and I don't see Glenn at the moment. There he is, Glenn Pratt. So we'll give you a quick update. But before I do, a little quick PSA, if you'll just give me a moment, and I promise to try to be brief. But the bottom line is that, we're looking at the news in the last week since we last talked, and in 35 states, things are not rosy. Things are headed in the wrong direction. There are 13 states, and Massachusetts is included in these, that we're holding our own because we're doing the right things. There's only 2 states where they're decreasing, and one of them happens to be Rhode Island, who, again, they're trying to do the right things. So that all being said, I'd like Chris to pop up real quick. There's a CDC website that I wanted to mention to everybody, and we'll make sure that we attach this to our Cohasset page, because as we go into the 4th of July weekend, I think this is something that we should all take a look at. And it's really, really simple. It's, you know, the CDC for coronavirus has a webpage for just about everything, but this one is personal and social activities. And how to go to a restaurant, how to host a gathering or a cookout, and how to do these things safely. So what do we know about the virus? And, you know, I talk to the Dr. Schubert on a regular basis on this stuff. The simple fact of the matter is the virus is not going to go away. What do we have for the tools in our arsenal? We have the ability to physically distance from each other, to wear a cloth face covering when we can't, to wash our hands, to stay home when we're sick, and if we develop symptoms, to call the doctor, and not just Dr. Schubert, but your doctor, and go and get a test. And if you need to isolate or quarantine. So I just wanted to bring this page up just so everybody sees it. And it really is, it's one of those things that it's just a reminder. So where are we? You know, the good news in Massachusetts, as I said, as of 2 hours ago, WCVB reported that there were no additional coronavirus deaths in Massachusetts today, and that we only had 114 new cases. So when you look at what you see on the news in the places in the South and where things are trending and what's going on, I applaud the efforts of the people in the town of Cohasset for what they're doing and trying to do the right thing. And as we go into the 4th of July, I just ask that everybody remembers that the only reason we've gotten to where we are is because we've done the right things. We've tried really hard, and it's not easy. Coronavirus quarantine is not easy, and corona quarantine in itself, obviously, we're all getting to a point where we're tired of this and we want to do other things. So that all being said, was a DPH call today, and we'll let Mary and Pam update you on the two big items that were on there. And the first one was that they came out with new travel guidelines. And I'd like to kick it over to Mary so that Mary can give you an update on what DPH told them today about that.
Hi, good evening. So thanks for having me. Chris asked me to attend the meeting tonight just to talk about just a few things. It's summertime, people are anxious to travel. And what does that mean? So today the governor came out with new guidance. The guidance says that all travelers arriving in Massachusetts, including Massachusetts residents returning home, are instructed to self-quarantine for 14 days, except that beginning tomorrow, July 1st, travelers from Rhode Island, Connecticut, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, New York, and New Jersey arriving in Massachusetts are exempt from this directive and are not required to self-quarantine. So what does that mean? Basically, if you travel to any other place other than the Northeast, when you come back, we really ask you to self-quarantine, watch for symptoms, check your temperature, and we want you to do that for 14 days. If you develop even the slightest symptom, a sore throat, little dry cough, go and get yourself tested. That really is what we want people to do. And where do you go to get tested, I guess, is the next big question. You go to mass.gov/gettested, and it's a great website. You enter your zip code, which we all know what that is, and it will tell you the closest spot to go to get tested. We're lucky, we have a couple of places, Carewell, which is an urgent care over in Norwell on 53, as well as the Convenient MD in Pembroke. So insurance covers it, you call beforehand, and they'll set up an appointment. So so that's really the biggest thing. If you do travel to a place that's outside of the Northeast, please self-quarantine when you come back. It is not required, it is not enforceable, it's just what we're asking people to do. So that's what I have about travel.
Thank you, Mary. What I'd like to do now is just have Pam give you an update on what they got from DPH in regards to phase 2 and phase 3 today. just a quick update on what's going on that front.
Thanks, Chief. So we are still waiting to find out when the state can proceed to phase 3. As Chief Sylvia was just talking about, our metrics, our health metrics continue to trend down, which is really good. Like the percent positives continue to trend down, the number of hospitalizations and the number of deaths continue to trend down. But we do have to be careful because, like you said, it's pretty much blowing up in another 35, 36 states. So in terms of businesses in Cohasset, just about everybody's opened with the exception of gyms. They're the ones that are really waiting to find out when we move to phase 3. So if we do hear, we have another call on Thursday morning. I will reach out to the different gym owners and let them know. They're all highly anticipating this, as you can imagine. The other groups that are also waiting to hear are a lot of the sports and recreation groups in town, be it on land or on the water. And the big change into phase 3 will be that you can now have competitions once that opens up. For now, like baseball or any other sport, it's just really just doing drills at this point. And so then you could actually have contact sports in phase 3. So there wasn't a lot of guidelines released because we've been still stuck in phase 2, step 2. The one set of guidelines that were released were some preliminary guidelines for schools. The state told us on the call today that they had to weigh potential health risks for sending kids to school versus the negative impacts of not attending school. You know, especially in places where some of the poorer towns where the kids were sometimes their only times they were getting meals were at school, and the social isolation, that type of thing. So there's still a lot of information that needs to be put out there, but so far it looks like September they are going to start something that looks like school. Another update is we came here last week and we were talking about the different restaurants that were opening up outside. There was Dooley's, Nguyen's, and Atlantica. This week we're going to be looking at the Quarter Stop Eatery. They're going to try to open up outside, so we're going to do an inspection this week for them. And then another thing the health department was doing a lot this week is permitting for farmers market. I know that's another item on the agenda. So even though events are really discouraged in phase 2, farmers markets are the exception, and they're actually very much encouraged because, you know, they're a great source for providing, you know, fresh food to people. So like everything else, it's scaled back a little bit. It's really primarily focused on food, but the health department definitely endorses the farmers market, and that will be on your agenda later tonight. So those are the updates that I have for this evening.
Carrie, you want to ask a question?
Yeah, Pam, quick question. Thank you for all you're doing, as always. I know we're getting a lot of questions about things like going back to the gym and if masks are going to be required. I know that you said you don't have all the guidelines yet, but do you know anything about the possible mask rules for once our gyms and in town reopen?
I know outside they're allowed to have exercise classes, and it's enough to be 6 feet apart and not wear a mask. I'm not sure if that's going to carry over in the indoors because we have not seen the guidance yet. It hasn't been produced yet, but I'm not sure. I know outdoors you do not need to wear one if you can maintain the 6 feet of distance.
Any other board members have a question? Paul?
So one thing which I know I'm like a broken record, but this is now 8 weeks in the hospital at South Shore where it's been universally mask required on all visitors, patients, any of the staff. And as of Monday, yesterday, there's not been transmission among the staff of COVID-19 within the hospital. So the masks definitely work, and that's a pretty concentrated population there. It's also high risk for exposure. So the masks really do work. the way the governor is kind of opening up, I think of it as a quarantine bubble. And I tell my patients that you got a quarantine bubble around your close family or friends that you know have been 14 days without any trouble. It's at this point trying to expand the quarantine bubble. Now, it looks like New England and the Northeast, that's going to be our quarantine bubble per se for the first step. But keep in mind that there may be outbreaks where you may have to kind of shrink down the bubble again and contact trace and try to find them. But I can't underscore how important it is for the masks, because it is really effective. If you look at, and on Saturday night, you may think this is kind of a geek thing to do, but Saturday night, I said, well, why didn't some of these, the rioting and the protests, why didn't this cause a big outbreak? So I looked through the videos of Minneapolis, New York, Boston, Washington, D.C., and Atlanta. I did a freeze frame, and I counted all the faces I could see, and I looked at, was there a mask or not? And of all the video freezes I did and looked, 50% or more of those who were in the video snap had masks. And the CDC, at a percentage of 40% or more of all comers who are masked in a situation of risk, will lower or flatten the curve to the point where there is not an R naught, the reproduction rate above 1. So if you can get enough people, even when you look at the protests, you would think that would be a big blip. It didn't occur, and they were outside, but also about half of them were masked. The one thing which I have to kind of caution is that this is a tougher virus than a standard head cold or flu. And I would have expected, normally in the heat and as the summer hits, you should see it drop off remarkably. Unfortunately, we've seen it in the southern states, it's taken off remarkably. So it seems to be a sturdier virus than a lot of other respiratory viruses that you would expect to be killed in the heat. So that's kind of the caution, but I think Massachusetts has done an unbelievable job, as well as Cohasset. That's it.
Corey?
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Just a quick question. I mean, I love the farmer's market, something that my family, I have gone to in the past. Can you just point out some ways it may be different? I mean, this is an outdoor thing. We've got tents. Do we have limited capacity? Do we have rope lines? What are some things that are going to be different to keep everyone?
Can I suggest we wait till because that's on the agenda later, and we'll answer those questions at that point?
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
I will just say I did review a plan that they had submitted and made comments, and they came back with a revised plan in order to meet health guidelines. So
Pam, are you going to be on the call when we discuss that later?
I'll stick around, sure.
If you don't mind, thank you. Okay.
And Madam Chairperson, do we have any other questions in regards to anything we've talked about yet?
No, and I'm monitoring for the public, but I think we're all set right now, everybody?
Okay, if not, we did owe you one report from last week, and I think Glenn was going to pick up on that.
Yes, thank you, Chief. Madam Chairman, on June 8th, as part of the outdoor opening of restaurants, we added picnic tables to the common, and they seem to be successful. We're managing them well. They're being used. But you had asked us to check with the Historic District Commission, which I did. I spoke with Jack Coffey, explained our ideas and why they were there. He brought them to a meeting of their board last night. Everyone is in favor of what we've done. However, if it's going to be a permanent, ongoing, seasonal fixture, we want to have a discussion with them next year before we start, which is wholly reasonable, I think.
Great. Thank you for following up on that.
Yeah, that's all I have, Chief.
Thank you, Glenn. I believe that's what we had for a report for tonight, unless anybody, Chief Quigley or Mary or Pam, have anything additional. I think we're probably good to go.
All right. Thank you, as always, for all your hard work and for making it as clear as possible for all of us to understand what's going on. So much appreciated.
Entirely welcome.
And good night. If anybody wants to hang out, you're welcome to stay. Okay, next up, we have 3 transient vendor licenses to discuss. The first one is South Shore Refreshments LLC, DBA Dell's Lemonade. We discussed last week the idea of issuing these 3 licenses and basically seeing what comes our way, and hopefully they'll all be exercising protocols as they do with in terms of face masks and distance. Is there any staff member that wants to speak on behalf of this topic in general?
Would you like me to speak?
Jen?
Hello.
Hello.
So these are annual licenses that we issue for the summer. They run from Memorial Day to Labor Day, and obviously we held off due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And then we had discussions with the Board of Health, held discussions regarding them, and my understanding is that they were okay with moving forward. So it's the same 3 vendors that we've had in the past, and they've submitted all of their paperwork. And then if the board votes them, they will get their licenses they could pick them up from Town Hall by tomorrow. They have to follow protocols as well at the beach regarding a zoning decision that was issued in the 90s. No more than 2 vendors at the beach at one time. And they're all inspected by the Board of Health. So all the trucks, you might see them, they can do events in town, private parties if they so choose. And the farmer's market, if approved, they've been licensed. So I don't know if there's any questions from anyone regarding these.
I will ask for questions. Do they have to adhere to like 6 feet in terms of lines? Is that going to be monitored and managed?
Well, what I was thinking we would do is I would draft a memo with Pam's approval of what, in addition to the license that they would receive new guidelines regarding the 6 feet. It needs to be updated anyway, so this is a better time than any, and that everybody should be wearing masks as they serve. I really can't enforce anything or, in the memo regarding the public, but we can certainly ask the vendors, the 3 vendors to do it.
Great, thank you. Carrie?
On that note, my question really was, do we need to set up some special spaces in the Sandy parking lot this year? I know that these trucks usually just kind of park where it's convenient on any given day, but if we need to have people in line, especially socially distanced, we might need to think about giving them some type of space options so we can have a line that isn't usually like our normal line. So I'm sure you're already thinking of that though, Jen.
Is it all right?
Jen, go ahead.
Yeah. So actually we did talk about that at one of the restaurant group opening meetings and just about what would be safest. And so we can reach out to the Sandy Beach. Would you think it's still safer to pull up to the front instead of having kids run across so have them come up towards, and so we'll talk to the Sandy Beach and see if we can designate a location where they can do that, easily back up and turn around. I think that would be the best thing to do.
Thank you. Any other comments from the selectmen or questions? So unless somebody would like us to do it otherwise, I think we could possibly move all 3 of these licenses, unless anybody has a specific question about any of the individual applications. This is South Shore Refreshments, DBA Dell's Lemonade, known as, and Zach's Ice Cream. Is everybody okay with doing one motion with the 3 of them? Okay. Would somebody like to make the motion?
I make a motion that we approve the transient vendor licenses for South Shore Refreshments LLC, doing business as Dell's Lemonade, Nona's Homemade Incorporated, and Zach's Ice Cream.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we're going to do a roll call vote. Paul Schubert.
Paul Schubert, aye.
Corey Evans.
Corey Evans, aye.
Jack Creighton. Unmute, sorry.
I know, Lynetta keeps getting, anyway, Jack Creighton, aye.
And Carrie?
Carrie Thompson, aye.
Diane Kennedy, aye. That's unanimous. And we will move on to the next item, which is discussion and approval of request from Second Congregational Church for services in the harbor. This is something we discussed last week in general, and needed to put it on the agenda for formal approval. And who will be speaking? Is that Chief?
Yeah, I believe Chief Sylvia is ready to talk, and we do have the Second Congregational Church up. I don't know who's behind the scene. We have a.
Oh, we can see a beautiful picture, but we can't hear you. So if you want to
And
either
I see,
turn your
you have-
video on.
And I think Jack wants to officially recuse himself on this one, Diane.
Okay, Jack, you want to speak?
Yes, as I mentioned before, I'm a member of the Second Congregational Church, so I think I should recuse myself from this.
Okay, thank you for noting that. Chief, you want to take it away and
Yes,
then,
thank you. Thank you again, Madam Chairperson. After we discussed this last week, the decision was just to let them go with a pilot program for one Sunday. So last Sunday, they held their services on the government island. I went down and we, in essence, took an eye on things, took a good look at things, checked the parking, checked how they had everything set up. The service went off without a hitch. There was zero problems. There were no parking issues. It was a beautiful sunny day, which very simply meant that Pastor Karen had to hustle through her service because she was more worried about people getting a sunburn than anything else. So it was a beautiful day on the harbor. And I checked in with the harbor master afterwards to make sure that she hadn't received any comments, complaints, or anything at all. And she received nothing. So, you know, from what we saw, the observation of what went on with the service and with how they handled the parking and how they took care of the area and cleaned up and did everything else, my recommendation to the board was that we would have no problem recommending this as far as going through for the rest of the summer.
okay. Is that Pastor Karen, who's representing the Second Congregational Church, or whomever who would like to speak? You're on mute. I think we're going to be able to hear you if you speak. Maybe not. Okay, did they just,
Yeah, there they go. There.
there we go. Hi, thank you. You're a little dark, but we can see you now.
Yeah, I had not intended to be part of this. I was just watching because
Oh, I'm sorry.
I have full confidence in the work of the select board and Chief Sylvia. It was amazing to be able to gather together as a congregation and to know that we were being as safe as possible in the moments that we were gathered. I'm just very grateful for the support that we've had from the community and the opportunity to be together to have church when we haven't been able to have church for such a long time in a gathered way.
Yeah, we are all looking for soul food, and that is a wonderful opportunity for you. Does any of the selectmen have comments or questions? Corey?
Yeah, I saw in some of the notes that maybe the idea of having a temporary parking pass, is that something, you know, because there is restricted parking in that area, is that something we can just not enforce, you know, for those time periods rather than have people print out a lot of paper? You can talk a little bit more about if that's required.
I'll tell you that we had very cautious conversations about that with the town, Chief Quigley and Chief Sylvia. So maybe Chief Sylvia, you could speak to that?
I'll pass right on to Chief Quigley, seeing he just popped back in. So he can give you he's the parking guru.
Hey, folks, I thought I was off the hook.
Nope.
Yeah, so Pastor Karen, they've developed some parking placards that they use. So if it's okay with the board is the only entity that really has the right to, or the authority to waive parking restrictions. So if you work into your motion that vehicles parked on Government Island with one of these passes from the church will be exempt from the parking rules, you know, during those times, that'd be appropriate.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I just want to echo Bill. So it also just makes it easier for the lobstermen who are down there to know why people are there, and I think it also just makes it easier for the police. And again, as Bill points out, it also makes it cleaner from an approval point of view. So, and again, I'm glad. By the way, I'm glad you all got together. That was great. I hope the weather holds for you every week. So good luck.
Great,
And
thank
the
you.
last thing I would mention also is that the parking pass that was developed actually had a beginning and an end date to it. And it's only for 9 to, I believe it was 8:30 to 10 on Sundays from now until the beginning of September, and that's it. And the number of cars that would be having one of these passes would probably be limited to less than a half a dozen. So I think it shouldn't create a problem with the parking that was down there.
Any other questions from the board? I have one question, which is where are you able to meet in the church for services if and when it rains?
Our plans are to do an online service as we've been for the last several months. So if it rains,
that's the backup.
Our music director and I will continue to work from our respective in-the-house locations.
Yep, that's
it's
great.
So much better to be together outside.
Well, let's just hope it's sunny every Sunday. Corey, you have a question?
Yeah, I hate to be a parking guru here. One thing that was in the notes, just the idea of a temporary handicap sign, and I think it's a great idea. That way, we give some priority access to people that don't have to travel very far. Is that something that is even legal for a private entity or a church to specify something as a handicap spot, or is this just going to be kind of an unofficial sign?
Chief, or does anybody? I mean, if somebody has I guess you could put, well, Chief, you take it away.
Yeah, there are, I believe there's a couple handicap spots down there, and if someone had a state placard, they could use that. But as far as the board allowing parking in a handicap spot, I wouldn't recommend that.
I think this is that somebody with one of these placards, meaning they live out of town, that actually, in addition to that's issued by the state, would be allowed to park in a handicap space down there. Is that correct?
Diane, you sort of froze there, so we only got part of that.
Freeze frame.
If I may, I'll tell you.
Go ahead.
How we're approaching
Yes.
it, if it's okay.
Yes.
The legislation about how handicap parking works is what prevails. We've asked our members for the sites that we have access to please leave those available to people who have accessibility issues so that they can park in places that give them ready access to the place we're doing worship. And we've got a fairly limited number of places. So we're just saying, hey, yeah, park here. But there's nothing beyond our
honor system
that directs that.
That's great. Thanks.
Great. Okay, so thank you. Any other questions from the board? Pastor Karen was freezing up on me, so I don't know if it's my internet or a little bit of everybody's, but we'll just keep moving. Is anybody would like to make a motion to approve the request for the use of Government Island and the parking areas near there for Sunday services?
I'll make a motion. We approve parking for the Second Congregational Church Summer Services 2020 on Government Island, Sundays, June 28th to September 13, 2020.
If you could just also add and use of this, in use of the grassy knoll there on Government Island.
And use
of
of
parking.
Government Island grassy knoll area in front of the sailing club for services.
Is there Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. I'll start with Corey.
Corey Evans, aye.
Carrie,
Harry Thompson, aye.
Jack,
Abstain.
Paul
oh, I'm
Schubert, aye.
sorry, Paul Schubert,
Paul
Diane
Schubert, aye.
Kennedy, aye. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is the event permit application for the Cohasset Farmers Market. Is there anyone here to present that application, or do you want me to go through it from our packet?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to see. There's a couple people I don't, there's two people that are in the audience that I'm not sure who they are for sure. They don't appear to be Michelle or Michael.
Right.
If they want to indicate by raising their hand as something that they're doing this application, they can do that. If I don't see that, then I thought I saw them at one point. I thought I saw Michelle on here, but I could have been wrong. So,
Michelle was on there, Chris, and she did call earlier. She was going to sign in right around 8, so you're running a little early. Maybe she's going to come back.
Okay, this is listed for 8:05, so
yeah, we're about 10 minutes ahead, which is good, but
excellent.
do you want to hold her then?
Why don't we hold her till 8:05 and we can go on to the next agenda item, which is to look over the FY21 Board of Selectmen calendar, Select Board calendar. Are we, I understand that we have to go through the legislature to get the Select Board title officially official, but are we, and should we change our letterhead for our agenda purposes to Select Board?
If that's the will of the board, we can, well, if the board wants to do that, that's absolutely fine.
Do you think, Carrie?
I do believe that a vote does need to happen in the legislature, and I've spoken with both our rep and senator about it, and they're happy to support us. We just don't know when that's going to happen, but I do think we should move forward as if it will happen as soon as possible.
Yeah, usually these general court actions take some time. I don't think Attorney Durensis is with us right now, but so should we, Chris, should we make a motion to approve our official use of the term, or do we not need that?
Yeah, I don't know if you need to, but there's nothing wrong with doing it either. So
okay. Carrie, you want to do that?
Oh, sorry.
Paul, go ahead.
Go ahead, Paul.
I make a motion, we rename the Board of Selectmen to the Cohasset Select Board on all outgoing communications and for any townwide publications.
Okay, good. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Oh, sorry.
Roll
Roll call. I gotta get used to this. Carrie?
Harry Thompson, aye.
Paul?
Paul Schubert, aye.
Jack?
Jack Creighton, aye.
Corey?
Corey Evans, aye.
Diane Kennedy, aye. This wasn't on the agenda. I think it's more of an administrative matter, so I'm not gonna make a case out of it. So let's move on to the FY21 Select Board calendar.
So the last few years, we've been taking a look a whole year ahead. It doesn't mean that every meeting has to be locked in stone. It just allows people to plan better. And it also allows us to adjust now. For example, if there's planned vacations or anniversaries or birthdays or other personal items or business, whatever, it can allow us to tweak the calendar now and at the same time also allow people to plan ahead. Basically, this is every other week with a couple of extras just thrown in for example, the board typically does and it does a lot, obviously these are all subject to change, but the board typically does a goals and objective session. I just kind of plug that in there for a Wednesday. By the way, do you want to put this up on the screen? Is that, or do you know?
Yeah, that would be helpful, so then everybody else can see it. I'm looking at it in like 4-point type.
Make it bigger. Is that better?
That's great.
Okay. So there's just a couple of, again, typically the board would meet roughly every other week. Usually go a little lighter in the summer, but I think at this point, with everything that's going on, it's probably better to keep more of an active schedule in the summer. I just plugged in the 21st as a holder for the possible goals session. I do typically the board, it's a public meeting, but usually step away and go over Wilton Commons or something. And the board can, by the way, groups of less than 10 can actually meet socially distanced safely. So if we could do it, again, if the board wants to do it, we could do it at Wilton Commons, or maybe find some outdoor location some afternoon if that works easier for anybody. Otherwise, I tried to avoid the holidays, and I plugged in tentatively a town meeting date, a special town meeting date in early December. Again, that's not set yet. I just threw that out there so people could think about it a little bit. The month of November is a little crazy, only because there's election day is Tuesday. There can't be board meetings on election day, and then the 24th, which is Thanksgiving week. Thanksgiving's a little early. We usually hold that as our employee, because it's tough to have a meeting on Thanksgiving week anyway. We usually use that. We've been using that the last few years as our annual employee recognition event. But you can still meet if you wanted to on a Wednesday or Thursday in the week of November 3rd, if you wanted to schedule a meeting that week, or even do one back to back on the 10th and the 17th. And then otherwise, as you see, there's a couple of dates in here, like you need to set the official date for annual town meeting by the end of December, pursuant to the bylaws. Typically, we do regular updates on your goals, and I just kind of plug that in for early January and October. We've done a joint presentation of the annual budget, so it's going to right usually the end of January, so I have that scheduled in here as a tentative. And then once you start to get into March, I've recommended you block out every Tuesday pretty much for that month, except for the second. I left that off, so you don't have meetings for 7 weeks in a row. But again, because usually you end up meeting the time, and there's no definition yet as to what those would be about, but they're there. And then town meeting would revert to its more traditional time on a Monday evening, and tentatively we're looking at May 3rd. That would fit. And then the town election would generally fall. Usually falls a week and a half later. This last year we typed it up, and so again, these don't have to be set now. I'm just throwing these out here for thought. And then you do your goals update every quarter, and then I just plugged in the town manager review, which we just finished. But that's one of those things the board does annually. So that's
Great.
Look at and it gives you again. So what will also happen is you see in August, as we get into August, I will start pulling together more of a process for the deadlines for annual town meeting and for special town meeting and how the capital budget. All that. Because it seems crazy to finish town meeting, right? But we really literally jump back into the play for next year and figure it out away. And you need to schedule it as far in advance as you can.
I saw your hand, Carrie. I'll get to you in 2 seconds, but just if anybody had any dates in particular that jumped out at them that you want to flag now as issues, let us know. But I mean, I think we're going to have to be nimble all year because we don't know what's going to come our way at what point and what might have to be adjusted as we go along. So, for right now, I think this sort of makes sense. I would also like us to talk a little bit tonight about whether we would like to meet in person for the goals workshop. But anyway, Carrie?
My question was about the logistics town meeting. I know we had an amazingly successful drive-in town meeting for this past one. I don't think that would be possible to do in December based on weather, and I'm not sure that we are going to be at a spot where we can meet, possibly socially distanced in the high school. We want to think about maybe making town meeting a little bit earlier, or at least we want to do the same drive-in model.
Well, the only comment I would make, if you're asking, is that you have a lot of advanced time on. So there's a primary on September 1, and then the general elections on November 3rd, and there's weeks of advanced voting, so doing something becomes somewhat. The clerk is going to probably burn me alive if I asked her to attending in October. We could do something early, but if we do something early in October, then our lead time is very short. Now that could be that again. There's nothing wrong with that. It just means that we'd have to finish the warrant really by the beginning of September, because you really need a lot of lead time. So there'll be a very short window. Now there are articles that were ready to go that were held, so those could always be put on, and then that could get done. We may have clarity on what's happening with the state at that point. The one thing I would say is the town hall will not be ready that early. It's not possible with the process they're going through. That doesn't mean you can do a second town meeting, right? I mean, there's no mandatory requirement to have just one special in the fall. It's usually easier to do that. But if it does become necessary to advance, and again, you have to make that decision tonight, but if it does look like that's a better answer, it'll be something you'd want to pull a trigger on, I think, fairly soon in July to allow the wheels to move, because it's a fairly quick turnaround on a special town meeting. And warrants have to be in people's hands 2 weeks in advance, and we have like a couple weeks before that for printing, and so it's a.
And yeah, and maybe when we do our goals and objectives, one piece of that conversation can be what the warrant might look like for special town meeting, and then we can kind of see where that might go. Jack, you have your hand up?
Yes, I think we should take special attention to the burden that's been on the town clerk's office. There's been a very, very trying thing. A lot of things have changed. She's been under a fair amount of pressure. So I think we really should pay attention to when she feels she's capable of doing that in an effective way. So just be noted.
Thank you. Any other questions on this? So right now, Chris, your intention is, I'll get to say, hang on, Paul, I see you. Your intention is just for us to kind of look at this and start considering it, or?
Yeah, the only dates I would ask that you set would be at least 2 for July, the 14th and 28th.
Okay.
You know, we're always planning ahead. There's going to be hearings and stuff. So if you'd at least be willing to set the ones for July, well, how about July and August?
Okay.
Because we do, there's going to be, you know, routine business that comes ahead, and then maybe some hearings for license stuff.
Yeah, and we have to get committee appointments and everything. Okay.
Right,
Paul?
and you got to.
Yeah, so looking at, you know, the options there, we may have certain things that are articles that may be a very short town meeting, and we can always do an additional special town meeting farther down the road if something else comes up. I suspect the fall town meeting may just be a couple of financial articles, because I think that's going to be probably the biggest hurdle right now, is to see what the financials will be like in 6 months.
Right.
Yeah, there were 7 zoning articles that were ready to go. Again, none of which were terribly controversial, but all had, you know, things to talk about. And the water department, you know, still has that water rate study and the potential water rate increase that they do want to have a public hearing on. So, and that is something they'd like to take up this fall. So I'm just laying that out there. So.
Okay. Corey, did you have a question, or are we all set? We good? Carrie?
I want to voice, I would like for us to be able to do our goal setting in person if everyone feels safe. I think that would help us gel and bond as a board, and it would be nice to be able to do it in person, but I'm not sure how everyone else feels about it.
Anyone else want to weigh in?
Doesn't bother me at all. I've been in worse situations.
Right. I agree. I'd love to do it in person. You know, maybe in Wolcott Commons and very spread out, but I think it would be good for all of us. Yeah. Corey, you good? Okay. All right. I think we're all set. I'm going to see if Michelle is, looks like she's in the attendee room. Chris, I don't know if you want to move her up to panelist, since we're going to be moving on to the, oh, sorry. You can do that while we talk about the dates for July and August. Would anybody like to officially move the dates in the memo that we have for July and August?
I make a motion, we approve the proposed fiscal year 2021 Board of Selectmen meeting schedule and fix July and August dates.
Is there a second? Okay, I'm going to do a roll call vote, starting with Carrie.
Carrie Thompson, aye.
Paul.
Paul Schubert, aye.
Corey.
Corey Evans, aye.
Jack.
Jack Creighton, aye.
Diane Kennedy, aye. So that has adopted the schedule in general and set the fixed dates for July 14th, July 28th, August 11th, and August 25th as our next meetings. And we will confirm that the 21st works for a meeting in person to discuss goals and objectives for FY21.
I'm working on the facilitator that the board used last year to see if I can get her to come back.
Great.
And again, I'll coordinate on location. Again, I think the big room at Wilcott Commons is the windows open, or even just the air conditioning. That's pretty much the distance. And if we've historically done food, but it's a little harder to do that. So if we did, we could do individual meals.
Bring your own picnic or something.
Bring your own picnic, or we could order individual meals from one of the local establishments, so people would have their own separate meal done. So if that we do that. So just let me know. That's
okay.
So you don't really have to get to. The board is allowed to communicate about planning a meeting by email, and I'll have Tracy work with Diane.
Yep.
Carrie to work on the details.
Great. Tracy and I will reach out on that. Okay, terrific. Okay, so moving right along, Michelle Hubley's joined you here, and if you could just sort of tee up, if you don't mind, the plans for the farmers market. And I know Pam Fahey, our health agent, is with us as well. So in case we have any questions. So Michelle, take it away. And you need to unmute. There we go.
Unmute.
I can't
There
do it.
How's
there
that? There we
Sounds
go.
great.
Hi all, it's really good to be here. Thank you very much. And thanks to Pam for helping us get organized and giving us the infrastructure and just the format in which to move forward. We are looking to start back on Thursday with just the farms and the food. Very simply, very easily, very slowly, very small. So with Pam, we worked out a landscape where we'll have the food trucks in that little, I always forget what it's called, Short Street, Long Street.
William Long, yeah.
Long Street, that's it, on Long Street. And we have 5 food vendors that will be starting with us on Thursday. Those will progress, I'm sure, but as we have tried to get something going, we are okay starting small, Diane, and all board members. We are very cautious that our first priority is the safety and well-being of the vendors and the guests that come onto the common. Whether they sell anything, whether they buy anything, our goal is to keep people safe, create a sense of community, but maintain social distance and health protocols throughout. The vendors are all on board with the same thing. Everyone is concerned about their own safety, but they also are very, very, very eager to get back onto the common. So I think the first mission is safety. Second is the well-being. The third is to offer some sort of connection, food, and to the community of which people have been lacking, but not at the expense of the health of the vendors and the guests. So we're okay that it's starting very small. With that, the protocol is a little easier. There's no live entertainment, of course. There'll be piped in music. We'll have borders and markers so that people will know to keep a 6-foot distance. We are setting a perimeter around the vendors with different stakes and cones so that people will know not to invade their space. The vendors have protocol amongst themselves on how they will manage money and the distribution of their food. So likely no one will be touching the jars or the produce, and it will be already pre-bagged. And they all feel comfortable taking the initiative and the assertions to maintain a healthy vendor stand. So with that, starting with that, we'll also not have any tables or chairs for people to sit and congregate, but they'll be invited, and I'll be pushing this out on social media. I haven't done it yet because I wanted to make sure this formality had been approved by you all. We'll be inviting people to visit the market, engage in, you know, the basic roots of what the farmers market was a place where people came to buy produce and food goods. And if they'd like to bring a chair or a blanket, they can do so towards the common or utilize the tables, those great tables that have been set up. That's kind of it. When everything's been so complicated lately, we're going to keep it really simple, and we're going to see how it goes. And Pam has been gracious enough to work with us and to understand that we may have to tweak each week as it goes along. As we start the market, we just want to maintain the expectation of the clientele in the town and the communities around us, because we've become a community market, that we're coming back in a safe mode. Safe, slow, controlled, careful, respectful mode. And we'll be on staff. There'll be 4 of us there on Thursday. And that's how we'll start. I don't anticipate, last thing I'll say, is any issues with the traffic, because the lanes have been set up with the pre-planned one-way new pattern of traffic. I don't think we're going to be inundated. There's no extra reason to loiter, so I think traffic will move through. I think it's going to be a play it by ear at first, and we're geared and motivated to tweak and to improve and to change as we go through. Each of the vendors that are starting on Thursday understand that we may just be doing a few markets, and they're okay with it. So we'll do the best we can with what we have, maintaining the safety and the well-being of the vendors, the guests, and the general public.
Thank you, Michelle. Any questions from board members? Corey?
Yeah, I'll take a swing at this. You know, in the application I saw it, and you've mentioned the no tables and chairs. Is that from the direction of the Board of Health? I mean, you know, it seems, you know, those tables, those are things that people use. We have tables on the other side of the common. It seems to make sense that you'd be able to have chairs. Is this just an abundance of caution on your end? And then if you were to want tables and chairs in the future, let's say there's more opening up, just as a matter of procedure, would the farmers market have to come again before the board for an addended or, you know, amended permit here? Or is that something that the Board of Health could just do automatically with them?
So I'll say, I can't speak for the Board of Health and Pam, but I will say from our point of view, it was in the discussions with Pam to start easy and start safely, Corey. And it was our decision not to, just to keep the logistics and the congregation points very low. So being that people congregate, they stay together, touch the same table, they maintain non-social distancing, you know, on those kind of group tables, we thought we would just get back to picking up the food, milling around the common, seeing each other. We would provide, because the Cohasset market is a little bit of a hybrid. It is a farmer's market, but it's also a community market. And it's also a market for connection. So it was our decision with Pam, which we thought made great sense. We'd be more than happy to say at the end of July or a few weeks in, look, things just seem to be under control. The numbers in the state, the numbers in the town seem to be under control. We want to be mindful and aware of everything that's going on, from on the ground to bigger picture. Are you comfortable, Pam, are you comfortable, board, that we add the tables and chairs in? We're going to be very careful about this. I think that the goal is to offer the experience of coming down on the common and having an experience. We're not exactly in a position right now, Corey, I don't think, to recreate the same experience that we left off with last fall, last summer. And we're not looking to do that. We're just looking to offer something. And as we think something, is better than perfect, we're going to start this way and work up to it gradually as the indicators allow. And if it means we come back to the board, so be it. We'll do that. No problem with that at all. We'd love to err on the side of caution and at the same time offer an experience. It won't be the exact same, but under the circumstances, with the lack of what's been going on and the absence of what's been happening, we think something's going to be better than perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
Thank
guess
you.
my I'm sorry, just as a follow-up, my brain was more, should we phrase this that way? You don't have to come in front of us again. You can make that decision on your own with Pam.
That's your call. That's your call. Yeah.
Carrie?
As someone who loves the farmer's market, Michelle, I'm really excited for this. I know everyone in the town is really excited about this. My question for you is just about payment details. I know that sometimes vendors can cash only in the market. I know that a lot of people in our state have been trying to make payments contactless, at least with getting out and stuff. Have we discussed that with the vendors? Do they feel comfortable with the payment options? Is there anything we can do to help streamline or make everyone feel safer about just the exchange of money in this setting?
That's a great point. That's a good point. Most of them have the ability to use the Square. And in speaking with two of the farms, they had talked about one person handling cash, one person handling the produce and whatnot. So they'll be using gloves, but I will do a deeper dive with them, because right now, Carrie, we only have 9. We have 4 food trucks. As long as notice comes, we have 4 food trucks and we have 5 food vendors. We have 2 farms and we have 3 extra food people. So each of those food people do have the Square. So that's a very good point, and I will drive that home in the logistics email that I send out tomorrow with all, if whenever possible, please use no touch card Square only. I agree with you. I think that's great. Yeah.
Sorry, Michelle. Any other questions from the board? Oh, sorry, Jack, I see your hand. Thank you for using the raised hand icon.
Just a practical suggestion. As much as possible, if the vendors can price their things where they can not be in a position to make change, that would go a long way to easing the problems with cash.
That's a great idea. Great. Great idea.
They can round it up higher for the price.
Well,
they'll like that. People may not, but
$3.75. It's also, there's an unintended consequence here, is that we've told the vendors that we are not charging a fee for the farmers market for the month of July or until further notice. And I know that they are coming with the expectation that they do want to keep their businesses alive, but they're more interested in making the connection and being back in touch with their community. So I'm sure if they're going to round up, they might round down, which is kind of a nice thing.
We would hope so.
Yes, I agree with you. So that's a great suggestion. Thank you.
I have a question that might be directed, and I see Pam put her hand up. I think I might direct it, and I just wonder about masks and whether people should be encouraged to wear masks.
So that's going. That's going out on the social distancing tonight. I wanted to wait until tonight before I put everything out on social media. We're also going to have flyers. We are going to encourage masks and to keep 6-foot distance. I know the 6 foot is going to turn to 5 to 4, and they'll be reminded. As long as they're in the market area where the vendors are, we'll be reminding them, and we'll be jovially and cordially and respectfully encouraging them and motivating them to do the right thing. So we'll be starting some new habits, but we'll have some masks to give out for people who do need masks. And then we will have masks to sell at a nominal price. And it might just be a donation, so we don't have to make change, or we'll give it out. We're not looking to make money. We're just looking to keep people safe. But in the social media you'll see this evening, it will say to please bring a mask. There will be hand sanitizer available. Hand sanitizer, the gloves, there's gloves, hand sanitizer, and masks for the vendors. They have their own. And we'll encourage people who are visiting the market to do so. We'll do all of that.
I think if there were gates, we would all be rushing through them because we are very excited about this. Pam?
I just want to say thank you to Michelle, first of all, for doing this. And I think everybody does really appreciate it. But I just want to let people know too, and in addition to making sure that all the different vendors meet the regulations for COVID, we still, as the health department, we still permit them, make sure everybody's following food code. We still get applications from everybody and make sure that, you know, and if they have to keep things in temperature control, they are, and what they're doing about it. So I'll be walking around Thursday as well to make sure that both food code and the COVID regulations are met.
That's great. And you know, Pam, I think people will welcome it. I think the vendors in particular will welcome it. I know that they're very happy to come and they've been itching and they're very, very excited to come. But I sense a little bit of apprehension on their parts too. They're running small businesses. The farms are running farms. They can't afford not to be there, but they can't afford to be at risk either. So I think they're going to be very glad and welcome your presence on Thursday, as will I.
Paul? And then you can morph into a motion.
Yeah, one thing you can tell the vendors is that, you know, this is about risk, and it's a pretty low risk situation if you're playing it carefully. You know, it's much different than a restaurant that's crowded and people drinking. It's outside, it's open air. You already have a pretty good sense that most people are going to be cautious, and they're going to want to come down and get stuff, but they're not going to hang around out in front of the vendors that long. And the vendors, I think, will be, I'm sure all the vendors are going to be wearing masks, and that alone, just by that alone, in a low risk situation, you know, I think it's about as low risk as you can get. In addition, the state numbers they're falling off nicely. So I would reassuringly say that I think they'll do okay, and not to be terribly worried. Can I make a motion then?
I would love it, please.
I'll make a motion that we approve the event permit application for the Cohasset Farmers Market from
July 2 to October 10th.
July 2 to October 10.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay, roll call vote. Jack Creighton?
Aye. Jack Creighton says aye. You get that?
Corey?
Corey Evans, aye.
Got it. Paul?
Paul Schubert, aye.
Carrie?
Carrie Thompson, aye.
Diane Kennedy, aye. Congratulations, Michelle. We are so looking forward to.
And likewise.
Chris, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just want to I'm excited about them coming back too. I also want to remind everyone that there's construction starting on the common. Unfortunately, it's going to start coinciding with this market. So it's not this week. A little preliminary work's been done, but everything's fine this week. It's going to start next week. So we just have to be flexible about this. We've been waiting for TL Edwards to come for weeks, and now they've finally shown up. So we got to take the time we've got. So that said, we'll understand better as the week goes, and we'll have to figure out, Michelle, but we'll coordinate with you and we'll make it work.
So, you know, after the pandemic, I think we can make anything work.
Yeah, exactly. And to Corey's earlier point, just in terms of, you know, whether tables are added or not, I don't know that we need to have a formal vote on that in the future, but I think we just need to all be in communication on, you know, what's working and what isn't, and trying to make accommodations as best we can. And I'm sure this board will support whatever flexibility you might need going forward.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Good night.
Thanks.
The last agenda item before town manager and selectmen comments is the Economic Development Committee discussion and review of charge. I would like to ask the board, you know, I had spent some time reviewing some old charges and also charges from some other communities. And in the meantime, I have been speaking with a few people in town, including Amy Glassmeyer, who was the point person for the economic development section of the master plan, and also is on the master plan implementation committee. And I wonder if we, should push this forward to our next meeting when we have a fuller conversation about committees in general, and hopefully the start of the initial appointment process. And also to consider, instead of an economic development council at this point, or commission at this point, doing some kind of a you know, small business COVID relief task force or something specifically targeted not to the long-term economic development in town, which we do need to address, but more specifically some of the issues and opportunities for small businesses to continue to do what they do and make money and accommodate their services based on some of the regulations that are coming forward. One thing that I saw the state is working on is a micro business relief fund that is likely, it's I believe $50 million that the state received from the CARES Act that is likely going to be granted to the communities to re-grant, although that the mechanics of how that's going to work are yet to be decided. But I think that may be something, if the town is going to be in the business of re-granting, and we do re-grant some money for the Cohasset Cultural Council, we may be looking at creating a committee that has some expertise in economic and business recovery, and having that be with the staff, kind of the direction that we go with this initiative. So I'm just throwing that out there, but if and I would love to hear anybody's comments on it or what they think about this topic in general. So I'll call on you if you raise your hand, but I definitely want to hear from all of you. Anybody? Paul?
So I'll start. Yeah, I think, you know, this is more of an economic recovery situation as opposed to development. And we have, you know, we've got a lot of businesses in town, but they've all been hit incredibly hard. You know, unfortunately, a lot of them are service industry, which has struck home, you know, in spades as far as being able to continue their business. So I would look at it as an economic recovery council. And I think you're right. I think there's the short term, and then there's the intermediate term, where if you can get the recovery going, then you can potentially have a grander development scheme down the road. But as of now, I think it's going to be a short-term one to kind of prop up the businesses.
And you know, act as a bridge between the business community and the municipality and other resources and things like that. Jack?
Yeah, one of the things that I have mentioned earlier, and it's on task, there's number 3 on the Economic Development Council charge. One of the things when we're talking about economic development that I think we should be aware of is that there's a relationship between the population, what is called the population draw area, which is the area in which businesses draw from, parking. And so I think having an economic development committee would make some sense. And part of the charge might be to, instead of saying we want to expand and bring in new businesses, what we want to do perhaps is recommend policies to improve economic conditions and enhance the business climate. To give you a very concrete example, if you say, let's have a new business. So we bring in a new business and we give them all kinds of incentives, and the business has been here for 30 years says, well, My customers are going to that new deal that the town government gave them all kinds of things. So I think the town needs to be, neutral, but I think we need to figure out some smart growth ways to enhance the business climate. And it's also very important that the draw of Cohasset is what a special town we live in. So sometimes if you overexpand, you destroy the goose that laid the golden egg. And I would just merely suggest that as we develop this committee, which I think is a great idea, I'm in favor of it, that we be cognizant of that. Thank you.
Great, I agree. Corey? Yeah, Paul? Carrie?
Yeah, I love this idea, Diane. It's kind of, in a normal year, I think this would have been a lot easier to decide, but I do think looking at economic recovery and economic development, in a way they are inextricably intertwined, but also feeling very separate right now. We have all of our local businesses that are trying to stay alive. I mean, you look at places like our gyms in town, they still haven't even been able to open. And then you look at future ideas like, new businesses that we're going to be building with new development in the harbor. And I think that we just have to maybe focus on how we want to do it both short term and long term, and just be able to clarify and solidify that.
Agreed. And I think that, to Jack's point, I think, maybe we narrow the scope a little bit, because certainly the thing we know more than anything, and I, I would like the master plan implementation committee and the economic development piece of that to be part of this conversation, because I actually don't know what's there, but I would think that maintaining the businesses that we have and doing what we need to do or to create a climate for their success is a priority first. So, Corey?
Yeah, sorry for the confusion earlier. Yeah, I definitely I'm receptive to that kind of logic, but at the same time, I think a lot of businesses have learned that, this is also an opportunity. This crisis is an opportunity for us to look long-term and maybe do things that maybe were not possible. So I'm just a little bit worried about if we narrow it too much, maybe we are getting back to where we were, and maybe that's not where we want to be. Maybe we want to, really do think long-term in regards to how we recover. There's some stuff that we've already done in town. What are things that are really working that we want to kind of think about, for the longer, period. The second thing is, I just would like to keep an open discussion about how the committee would be structured, because, a lot of businesses that are in town are not owned by residents. And, I believe, we can only have voters in our committees, and maybe there's a creative way where we can carve out a little bit so we can have representation, because these people still have their livelihoods tied to our town, even though they don't have, they don't vote here. So just keep that in mind as well, I'd ask.
Absolutely. So I guess I'd like to ask for some guidance as to next steps, maybe putting this on the next agenda for a discussion about whether we want to charge, an economic development committee or something like that, and a sort of recovery committee, or that we charge an economic development committee, keep it broad, and sort of give them a task to deal with the immediate first. Again, with the advice of the implementation, the people that have some content expertise in this. But maybe if there were two selectmen, and I'm looking at Jack and Corey just because they have some experience in this small business area and community development, whether you guys would like to take a crack together at putting together just a short 3-sentence charge, and also maybe consider who might be on that committee. And to Corey's point, we can always, public meetings are open to everybody. So even though, this isn't a committee, this would be advisory to the Board of Selectmen. So you wouldn't have to be a voting member to be a full participant, as a kind of an invited guest or whatever. And so we could think about that and how to structure that. But the actual committee members would indeed have to be voters. So general thoughts, would anybody like to go forward with some and develop a little bit of a skeleton of what this might look like? And then we'll invite at least Amy and somebody from the Master Plan Implementation Committee to come in and discuss this with us next time.
Yeah, I'd be happy to poke around and work with Jack. I mean, I think between us, we can probably, we probably know most of the businesses in town, and together, we can, sketch a, pretty focused kind of mission. I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, I think that
Appreciate it.
works. That
That'd be
works.
great.
And I think it's a very efficient use of time, two of us, and this is just a tentative recommendation to foster further discussion.
Yeah, it's real hard to write charges in a committee, in a board meeting. We've tried it before. It doesn't work. So I appreciate that. Any other suggestions, comments, next steps, Carrie?
I do think it's problematic this at one committee right now. I feel like separating them probably isn't the smartest idea.
Yep. Agreed.
And how would we, I mean, I know that we've in the past, Cohasset does have a Chamber of Commerce. What would be the, ideal relationship between these two boards?
Well,
I imagine.
Yeah, I would consider having a representative from the Chamber of Commerce either be a kind of ad hoc committee member if they weren't a resident of Cohasset, or have a position on the committee. I think that's really important, and I think that's where the gaps have been in the past is that there's the Chamber of Commerce, and in Cohasset in particular with the small businesses, a lot of them are being run by one or two people. And they don't have the time or, to actually be active and carry this forward. So I think making the town municipal connection to the business community and whatever representative body, like the chamber,
Well,
is the way to do it.
I'm getting a little confused. My sense is that the board would like Corey and I to put together a charge to set up this committee, and I think the actual fine tuning of the committee is best done at the goals meeting because there will be some back and forth. But I think Corey and I, like meeting with Larry Corthell and some people like that, and Carrie, correct me if you think there's a better way of looking for it, because I'm quite open. But I think our ideas would be to put together kind of a overall look at some of the concepts that could work, and then have the actual Board of Selectmen draft that. And I think the goals meeting is the best time to do that. But Corey and I can provide the groundwork so that can be an effective and hopefully a fairly short discussion. But
Take it away. Great, thank you.
Will do.
That sounds good.
Next up, town manager update.
Okay, just a couple of quick things just to follow up on that. The master plan implementation committee was tentatively scheduled for July 14th. So
Oh, great. Okay.
for them to be on. And in terms of just looking ahead, the 14th, we will hopefully have first round of committee reappointments at least. And then we'll list any of the board appointments. I know that some have seats on certain committees. That might be something you want to tackle next time. A couple just jumped to mind. The Master Plan Implementation Committee, for example, Kevin was the board's liaison and he's now on the board, so you're gonna have to fill that slot. And you have the CPC, and Paul's been the liaison to that. But it's time, it's the time to renew that. So those are the two that jump out off the top of my head. Plus, there's also a liaison. The board has a liaison to the Norfolk County. I think Selectman Crane has been the liaison to that. There's a couple of
anybody wants that. They're having nasty budget fights. They're fighting over money. The emails I get back and forth, the long, even by my standards, very long things going on. If anybody'd like that.
And you got to drive to Walpole.
Well, yeah, some of us used to live in Walpole. Oops, I shouldn't mention that, should I?
So that'll be the next. That'll be the next meeting. Will be some of those things.
Chris,
We'll talk.
I'll talk to you and to Tracy, because I think it would be great to get out to the board as soon as possible, sort of like an outline of where the committee positions are. I know we got one in May, but to be honest with you, I haven't looked at it and it's probably buried. So if we can do that, and with Corey being with us, just to get a sense of the committees, where the positions are that are open, and also where different selectmen seats are on those so that we can knock those appointments off as soon as possible. And everybody can think about what, and how they might want to be involved.
Okay, we'll pull that together and get it recirculated. So.
Great, thanks.
Just a quick scheduling update. The RTF will be open this Friday. Town Hall and other regular offices are closed for the 4th of July, even though it's the 3rd, that's the official holiday. The library is open. So the library will be open. Everything else is closed on Friday. The RTF is closed on Saturday. So the RTF will close on Saturday in honor of the 4th of July. So the RTF will be open Wednesday, Friday, Sunday this week. Okay. Just so everybody knows that. And as I mentioned during the farmers market conversation, work on the Cohasset Common Improvement Project will begin officially next week. T.L. Edwards was, I'm sure if anyone's been around the Common or Town Hall, you've seen all the markings all over the pavement. So they've done all the dig safe stuff. And they started just this week, they began softening up the curbing, because the first thing they're going to do is pull out all the old curb and not get rid of it. They're going to reset it. They're going to reset the granite, make it clean. And so that'll be the first thing. The expectation is it could take about up to 6 weeks for the project to be finished, and it's going to widen some of the parking lanes on those 2 one-way streets, so we'll have double parking. It's going to clean up the pavement, clean up the curbing, and then we'll do other work, finishing work around the center part of the common right across from Town Hall. So, and this is all funded primarily by a roughly $250,000 complete streets grant the town received from the state. So we need to get that work done by this fall to assume to the terms of the grant. So those are my couple of updates. If anyone has any questions, otherwise.
Will there be additional painting for, I know we still have that jagged, middle line on. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's a good question, Corey. So in fact, yes. So the painting's on there just temporarily. So that road will be repaved. And there's either a little traffic island will be created down there to direct people, a nice little one, or something painted on the ground. It'll be a visual island, if not a physical one. Because it all depends on how police and fire deal with that. The goal is to slow people down when they come to the common, and kind of steer the traffic. So we had talked about some kind of a little traffic island with a very nice "Welcome to Cohasset Village" sign or something pretty right there as you enter. And we'll work with obviously folks if that comes together. I don't know if the sign is in the first round of plans, but that'll all be repainted and restriped. And
with respect to the island, because I consider that sort of a material alteration. If it gets to a point where we think we're doing that, could you bring it before the board?
Yep.
Because if we all of a sudden see a traffic island, we're going to hear it.
Yeah, it had been talked about. So it may be that we just do something on the ground, like striped, a striped area to visually direct you. You see those sometimes on roads. We have a little striped out area not to sort of direct people, because you see that what's happened is the lanes move, right? So there has to be a better visual direction there. Mm-hmm. So.
Just
there will be. No, I hear you. I will follow up with Brian.
Please.
Yep.
And on that, just a riff on the common on Saturday, and I see the chiefs are still here, but there was a comment about the one-way traffic around the common on Sundays, which was in place for church services, which are not happening on the common, and whether we still want to continue with the one-way around the common on Sundays or not. I don't know if any of the chiefs want to weigh in on that.
We really haven't talked about that, to be honest. It was part of the plan. So I assume I'll defer to the board things.
And you can defer to, talk about it and consider it. It was just something that somebody brought up to me over the weekend because it was literally for the traffic flow for the church services.
And just a quick comment on that traffic island at the foot of North Main and Highland. We did talk about that in the meeting. That's really a traffic calming measure to slow people down coming into that to the nursery schools and things like that. So that was, I don't know if it was specifically part of the plan. We did touch upon it, and it is something that I'm definitely in favor of. Just for the discussion down the road.
Thanks.
Very quickly, that is on our to-do list for our morning meetings, to have the conversation about traffic around the common. It just hasn't gotten there yet. It may even make it as early as Thursday. So we'll have that conversation and we'll come back to the board. I haven't even had a chance to talk to Chief Quigley about it yet, but it was mentioned to me the same way. We've been spending the time to close the road down, and there are no church services around the common on Sundays at the present time.
Right.
So it's probably something we should re-examine and wait till they come back into service. But
right.
And I'm with Chief Quigley, and he already mentioned it. The traffic island was all about trying to slow the traffic coming to the village because people drive too dang fast, and that's what it comes down to. So anything we can do to do that, and of course, if we get to that point, we'll make sure we bring it back to you. But Chief Quigley went out and found some pictures, I believe it was up in Westwood, of traffic islands that were put in place. And they were very well done, very well landscaped with beautiful signs. And, welcome to historic Cohasset Village, speed limit 20 mph. And see if we can get people to slow down. So you can't say you didn't see it. It's in the middle of the road. All right? It's not hiding over on the right up in a tree. So that's what we were hoping for.
Got it. And just to be clear, I remember seeing it, but Chris was saying you weren't sure whether you were doing it or not. And I just think if there's a material change, it would be great for us to be updated on it. We'll get calls about it. Corey, did you have a question?
Yeah, just for clarification, the one-way discussion is just for North Main Street, because the rest of the road around Town Hall is going to permanently be one way. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Okay. Selectmen comment period. Jack.
This weekend is 4th of July weekend. And even though we're not going to have our traditional 4th of July, I'd like everybody in town to make an extra effort and put flags out and remember this. And I think it's important that we do remember, that this is our country. And this is a pretty good country, and this country has struggled mightily to be really that beacon on a hill. So as we all in this wonderful town of Cohasset on 4th of July weekend, if everybody could put out an extra flag, an extra little bunting, and just, remember what a wonderful country with all its flaws, but what a wonderful country we're blessed to live in. Thank you.
Thank you. Carrie?
Yes, I second that with Jack. I've also been really impressed with seeing all of the rainbow and Black Lives Matter flags around town. I think that also highlights what an amazing country this is. And everyone be safe this weekend. I know it's really tempting to get out and see people and for social distancing, but we're doing really good in this town and en masse. So have fun and also stay safe.
Thank you. Dr. Schubert.
Yeah, so I think looking over the last couple of weeks, we had the town meeting and then we had the election, and they seem to have gone off pretty darn well. And I'd like to have, I think just thinking about a post-action discussion about potential voting down the road, because it's going to be there'll be a couple of elections coming up, just to see how the voting went. Are there ways to tweak it to make it smoother, to make it safer, to make it, because it'll be in November as the big one. It's going to be fairly large. I would think a large turnout, and just ways to look at how we've gone through the election and the town meeting. Look to see how down the road how we can make it as efficiently as possible from a voting point of view. And 4th of July, I've got a flag on order. I'm hoping it arrives in time. I'm done.
Thank you. Corey, I'm going to go to you. The chair gets the privilege of usually the last words, but this is our time typically to, talk about upcoming events or something that just happened as you noticed, or share, a comment on everything. But welcome aboard, and I'll give you the floor.
Yeah, I just need to, begin by thanking you four and Kevin McCarthy, Chris Senior, everyone that's, has been a wealth of knowledge, getting, everyone's been open and welcoming, and that's just tremendous. So thank you for that. I'll keep that pretty short. I did want to wonder if Chief Quigley or Chief Sylvia might want to talk or say a little bit about fireworks this weekend. I know we've had this influx of fireworks from maybe north of us, and if there's anything in particular they wanted to mention to the town.
Oh, they're both coming on real fast.
Good moment for this.
It's like magic. Yeah, it's been a real challenge across the South Shore. I know the Ledger called me last week, and they did a story on Saturday about how it's been a challenge across the South Shore. Really, we have been getting calls. We're getting calls last night about it. They are illegal. We try to, get to the location. It's very difficult locating where they're coming from. First of all, if it's not a neighbor calling, someone calls and says there's fireworks in the neighborhood. But usually by the time we locate it, they've all been, blown off. And one of the things that's really concerning, and these aren't, we're not talking firecrackers and, jumping jacks. These are just below commercial grade, fireworks, professional fireworks. So they're really dangerous, and the fire chief can speak to that. But we will, if we do catch you with them, we will seize them, and it is illegal, and it's very, very dangerous in the wrong hands. So we're trying. It is illegal, and I know Chris is going to mention, he does his weekly wrap, and I think that might be that some of this info might be part of it this week.
Great, Chief.
Chief Quigley is absolutely right. I mean, the problem with fireworks is they're readily available once you go north of the border. It's New Hampshire with all its live free or die stuff. We can sell, or they can sell fireworks, but you can't shoot them off there. So I guess that means you go to Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, no, not New Hampshire, but to Rhode Island, Connecticut, or Mass to shoot them off. The quality of what is coming in, and I won't call it quality, I'll just say the level of what is coming in, it looks like a wine box, about the size of a wine box, with 12 2-inch mortar shells within it. You light a fuse and run like crazy. The explosive power of it is scary. It's, every year somebody gets hurt badly by this stuff. What we ask is, when you get the flyer from Phantom Fireworks, throw it in the trash. Don't go to New Hampshire. Don't go buy a bunch of this stuff and bring it back. It's just a matter of time before somebody gets hurt. So realize they are illegal. They're extremely dangerous. Even with the rain of the last couple of days, we were in a drought before that. You can cause a fire, the bodily injury. There's so many downsides to the fireworks. If you can find a place that's doing professional fireworks, go there, socially distance, watch the fireworks. Let the professionals do what they do. Don't try to be that person. They're licensed. They understand the risk. They understand exactly what they're getting into. I can't speak any more than that in the fact that please use your heads and be safe. And don't, if you haven't gone and bought all this stuff, don't make a trip to New Hampshire to go get it. It's not a good idea. That's what I got.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
And then just one more thing I just wanted to bring up. I mean, I think one thing that's been, I've really appreciated the time and us putting stuff on Zoom. And I know we just chatted about maybe starting to have some in-person meetings and stuff opens up, but I'd like to have kind of some future discussions about how we maybe continue to broadcast on, Facebook live streaming and Zoom. I love that people can participate in meetings, not necessarily in the room. I don't know what the legal challenges are with state regulations, but this is stuff I want to keep on our minds because I do like how this is really, encourage participation. Thanks you all. Thank you.
And just on the participation, I think one of the great things that the Zoom platform has given us is the opportunity to go to more meetings and listen to more meetings and have people participate in meetings beyond the selectmen meetings, which were before this pandemic, the only ones that were televised. So I think that having access to more meetings is only a good thing for everybody. I'll be brief. Thank you all for voting for me for chair. I appreciate it. I really look forward to working with everybody. I thank the voters too. We had over 1,300 votes cast, which I think not only speaks to a level of engagement in the community, but also the ease with which people were able to vote and the comfort with which they were able to vote should they have chosen to take an early or absentee ballot, which most of the voters did. So I think that is a terrific sign for future participation, and I am thrilled to have Corey join us. And please reach out to any of us at any time about just some of the mechanics of open meeting law. And I know there'll be a little bit of onboard training, and the MMA is not holding any. Mass Municipal Association they have it, MMA.org, I believe, is their website. They have tremendous resources. They usually have some great training programs. Those will all be done virtually for the foreseeable future, but I encourage you to reach out, and I literally go on their website a few times a week. So with that, everybody stay safe. I won't quote the Declaration of Independence, which is July 4th's document, but the Constitution first words, which I love, which are "we the people," in order to form a more perfect union. So with that, be well, stay safe, and we'll be in touch with the agendas for the next couple meetings. So good night, everybody.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, I forgot all about that. Is there a second?
Second.
Paul?
Paul Schubert, aye.
Jack?
Jack Creighton, aye.
Carrie?
Carrie Thompson, aye.
Corey?
Corey Evans, aye.
And the Rusty Diane, aye. Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.